This is Bob. This is a pipe that needs some work. Specifically right here. This is a ledge with a 20-foot drop. Bob needs to get right here to do the work. The problem with this location is there's a fall hazard in Bob's work area, which means Bob could fall and die, or at least get really hurt. Death is permanent, not what we want for our employees. Now Bob is dead, and this is not the end of Bob's story. You see, Bob has people that care about him. Bob loved being a father. He loved spending time with his little man. But that little man will have to be on his own now. Bob loved his family, and each year they'd dress up cute and take a holiday picture. But Bob can't be in those pictures anymore. Bob's parents, they're no longer his parents. They're just Rhonda and Derek, and they used to have a son, and they were so very proud of Bob. Bob's friends, they like to grill out together, but they'll just have to find someone else to bring the brisket next year. Bob's fatality doesn't end when Bob dies. It echoes in the shattered lives of friends and family for the rest of their lives.
So we've seen how to do it wrong. Now let's look at how to do it right.
This is Bob, and as he approaches the location, he needs to ask a question. Can I fall? Looking at this giant gap, the answer to that question is yes. And then comes in the next question, and the next question is, how far can I fall? This is a 20-foot drop. We measure from the bottom of Bob's boot to the surface below. OSHA Construction Regulation 1926.501 Bravo 1, Unprotected Sides and Edges, states, each employee on a walking working surface with an unprotected side or edge which is 6 feet or more above a lower level shall be protected from falling by the use of guardrail systems, safety net systems, or personal fall arrest systems. Notice the magic number here is 6 feet. If you can fall 6 feet, you need to do something about it right now. A hard barricade of some kind can be installed, which is considered fall prevention. This could be a mobile guard system or a tube and coupler system. Perhaps a permanent guardrail is the best way to go. A temporary wooden railing system could be needed. In some circumstances, a flagging control zone could be appropriate. Many times a chain link fence or cable guarding system could be used depending on the situation and the location. We will cover guardrails a little bit more later on. Another option is an aerial lift. And they can be a boom lift, a scissor lift, a truck lift. These options will be covered in different videos. Finally, we arrive at putting fall protective equipment on Bob and tying off to a nearby anchor. Each situation will be different and should be discussed with the company that you're working for, their fall protection competent person. For this situation, Bob and his supervisor have discussed things and fall protective equipment has been decided upon. But let's change gears for just a moment and look at the science behind a fall. There are two safe places to hook up a lanyard or a lifeline, and that is either above your head or in special circumstances behind you. If you hook up at your feet or below you, you could cause some very significant issues if and when you have a fall. We're going to do an exercise for this, and for that exercise, we're going to be hooked up at our foot level. Now this is an approved 5,000-pound anchor point, and Bob has decided to hook up to it. The lanyard Bob is using is a 6-foot lanyard. Bob takes his lanyard and hooks it up to the D-ring on the back of his harness. Then he hooks it up to the anchor point. Now, we're going to make Bob fall. Bob is an average 6-foot tall man. His D-ring is at a height of 5 foot from his boot sole to the center of the ring in the middle of his back. Pay attention, folks, because here comes Bob's death one more time. As Bob falls, he'll fall 5 feet, and his lanyard hasn't even realized that he's having a fall yet. Bob's D-ring is even with the anchor point, and he's already fallen 5 feet. Now Bob has to fall another 6 feet before his lanyard fully deploys, making this a total 11-foot fall. And as the old saying goes, it's not the fall that hurts, it's the stopping. To continue on with the science of a fall, if you look right here, you will see how OSHA calculates the free fall distance. It is free fall distance, deceleration distance. That's if your lanyard has a decelerating device like this. It's also going to account for all of your unpacking units, all of your rip stitching, everything that is your lanyard and your harness all the way up to the anchor point that is going to unpack or stretch or elongate. That goes into your deceleration distance. Then you have your D-ring shift, which is your D-ring on the back as it flips up. You've got your back D-ring height, which is your D-ring down to your boot soles. And then you have the safety factor. And this is when you hear people talk about safety factor of 2, a safety factor of 3, they're talking about 2 foot or 3 foot. They're talking about an extra little gap just to keep you even safer. Now, a lot of companies will use a calculation like this. And notice they're measuring from your tie-off point. And that is really not appropriate, considering I've had people that have had to tie off to vertical lifelines that were installed 40 feet above their head. Does that mean I should add that 40 foot in? That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It needs to be accounting for every bit of your fall. Pretty much measure from your D-ring down to where your D-ring's going to stop swinging. And that's also where we get into things like your centrifugal force of you swinging sideways. This guy in this image is dropping straight down. But if he actually fell from where he was standing right here, he would swing over there. I understand where some people could see that this is confusing. 1 foot here, 6 foot there, 3 foot there. Wait a minute, it unpacks? It elongates? What do you mean? Just take your fall protection and read. Read the tags. If you're not very good at reading, understand. Get with your competent person. Tell them to help you. Tell them, I don't understand. How much is this going to elongate? Worst case scenario, contact your manufacturer. Ask them, part number 55327, how much is that going to elongate? And they'll tell you, go ahead and add in 6 inches or a foot or 2 feet because that unit unpacks. In the end, we don't want you to hit anything below you, but we also don't want you to come to a screeching halt like you've been in a 50-mile-an-hour car wreck. So pay attention to your fall protection. Pay attention to your footage. Pay attention to how far you're getting out away from your anchor point and preventing that pendulum swing, that centrifugal motion from kicking in. Take a look at this page pulled from OSHA.gov fatalities. This video was cut and released in the summer of 2020, and the sheet covers the last 20 fatalities logged and recorded by OSHA. Falls are literally killing our workers. Scaffolding, roofs, floor openings. All of these have very specific OSHA regulations. They all have requirements. And arguably, had the employees been protected by either fall protection or fall prevention, these deaths would have never happened. They should not have ever happened. An employee dying falling through a floor opening? Why?
What I just said is a problem for you as an employee or as a supervisor. Then you really do have a problem. Under OSHA 1926, employee safety is the responsibility of the employer. And if you are a supervisor, that is your job. If you're an employee, your job is to keep yourself safe. One of the best ways that we keep people safe is planning. And if you are a supervisor, you're responsible for your employee safety and you need to do the planning. So go out there, look at the area and plan with knowledge and company instructed judgment criteria. Now that sounds like a whole big mouthful of crazy, doesn't it? The company needs to be able to tell their supervisors, under this situation, do this. Under this situation, do that. They need to lay it out. That way there's a real good mold of what your safety culture is as a company. If all you do is take the OSHA regulation and say, go forth and do OSHA, you're going to get people hurt. You're going to get people hurt bad. That may not happen every single day, but you're going to get people hurt. The problem is we're aiming for the wrong target. You see, when you aim low and you miss, someone gets hurt. When you aim high and you miss, you're still hitting a lower bar. OSHA is a very, very low bar. There are a bunch of rules. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat in a supervisor's office or even in a clinic discussing with that supervisor how this happened. And throughout the investigation, they followed all the rules. They did everything right. There's nothing I could have changed in their regulation compliance because they met every bar that OSHA put, because that's that low bar. Raise it up to company practices. You see, when you take all the rules and you say, we're going to comply with all these rules that this person who's never done our job has set for us, don't be surprised when people get hurt. But when you take these titans, that's what I call them, titans of the industry, my 35-year general superintendent, When you take that guy has seen people get hurt, or girl. I'm not trying to be prejudiced here, but that person has seen people get hurt. They know, hey, watch out whenever you do this because it'll crank your arm. Watch out when you do that because this can fall. You take that person and you make them comply with regulation, they'll have that experience and the knowledge enough to make that standard operating procedure, which is how we do business, or that safe practice. How do we actually unload the trucks? How do we actually break up the concrete? How do we install the conduit? How do we do brazing operations? That is where you cannot just take somebody, give them a book and say, go safety. You can't. When you do that, you get people hurt. And that is OSHA versus safe practices. Safe practices are going to get you into that place where when somebody gets hurt, when somebody gets injured, it's surprising. It really is. And there's many companies out there that when somebody gets hurt, it's a shock to everybody because it happens so rarely. Fall protection is not the place that you want to fail. It is absolutely not the place that you want to do the bare minimum because you're going to get people hurt.
Now, our first line of defense in falls is fall prevention, actually preventing that fall. That's going to be things like handrails and floor coverings. So let's take a look at those. 1926-502 Alpha 2, employers shall provide and install all fall protection system requirements by this subpart for an employee, and shall comply with all other pertinent requirements of this subpart before that employee begins the work that necessitates the fall protection. So to wrap all that up in a nutshell, it's the company's responsibility. It's the supervisor on site's responsibility to make sure that that area is safe for our employees to go into, specifically speaking about fall protection. 1926-502 Bravo 1, top edge height of top rails or equivalent guardrail system members shall be 42 inches plus or minus 3 inches above the walking working level when conditions warrant. The height of the top edge may exceed 45 inches height, provided the guardrail system meets all other criteria of the paragraph. 1926-502 Bravo 2I. Midrails, when used, shall be installed at a height midway between the top edge of the guardrail system and the walking working level. Meaning you take the top rail and you take the floor you're on, and what's the middle of that, and that's where the midrail should be. 1926-502 Bravo 3. Guardrail system shall be capable of withstanding without failure a force of at least 200 pounds, applied within 2 inches of the top edge, in any outward or downward direction at any point along the top edge, which is a real fancy way of saying this thing needs to be able to withstand 200 pounds of force. It is not rated for people to stand on, but it should be able to withstand a decent version of a fall into the guardrail. 1926-502 Bravo 6. Guardrail systems shall be so surfaced as to prevent injury to an employee from punctures or lacerations, and to prevent snagging of clothing. This is point blank telling anyone who installs handrails, any kind of the fall prevention railing, you can't have a bunch of sharps sticking out of this thing. I've been to more than one residential house and seen nails sticking out of the handrails that are going up the stairwell. 1926-502 Bravo 10. When guardrail systems are used at hoisting areas, a chain, gate, or removable guardrail section shall be placed across the access opening between guardrail sections when hoisting operations are not taking place. So, this is one that I've seen violated, even though a lot of companies try to comply, they just don't quite grasp it because in their mind they read this regulation and they think, oh, well, we're hoisting right now. No. The guardrail is up there and you're putting on that gate, that extra thing. That way, whenever you're not landing materials, there's still a full, complete fall prevention system intact, meaning those chains, that gate needs to be able to withstand 200 pounds of force. Now, when you have the gates open and you're actually landing materials, you still have to have fall protection on your employees. If they have a chance of falling out, that means put on a harness, get you a lanyard or something and tie off to something back behind you or above your head. That way you can't fall out of that building or off the top of that high rise or whatever the situation may be for your specific job site. 1926-502 Bravo 11. When guardrail systems are used at holes, they shall be erected on all unprotected sides or edges of that hole. Pretty self-explanatory. 1926-502 Bravo 12. When guardrail systems are used around holes used for the passage of materials, the hole shall have not more than 2 sides provided with removable guardrail sections to allow the passage of materials. When the hole is not in use, it shall be closed over with a cover, or guardrail system shall be provided along all unprotected sides or edges. So if you're passing materials through this big hole, because theoretically it's not just going to be a little 6-inch hole in the ground that you're handing stuff through, it's going to be a big hole that you're handing stuff up, or you're lifting stuff up, or you're even hoisting stuff up. For example, an elevator shaft or something like that, before the actual elevator shaft gets poured in, it's just a hole in the ground. In that situation, this is exactly what they're talking about. You can't just have all the guardrails get completely pulled off. Pay attention to this regulation when you're working around big holes. 1926-502 Bravo 13. When guardrail systems are used around holes which are used as points of access, such as ladderways, they shall be provided with a gate or be so offset that a person cannot walk directly into the hole. Covers. 1926-502 Indigo is covers. We're going to do this one a little bit different. There's a lot of words in these regulations that covers. And I'm just going to lay them out right here, and I'm going to briefly throw out some rules, wrapping all of these up in a nutshell. A floor cover needs to be able to withstand 2 times the intended load. So if it's in the roadway, what is the largest vehicle that's going to be coming through? What is its weight? And then 2 times that. If it's in a walkway, what is the heaviest load we predict on this cover? Times 2. They should also be secured to prevent displacement. So somebody walking, kicking it accidentally should not move that hole cover. Just throwing a piece of plywood on a hole does not adequately protect that hole. You've got to secure the cover as well. The one we are going to break down a little bit more is 1926-502 I-4. All covers shall be color coded, or they shall be marked with the word hole or cover to provide warning of the hazard. This is not negotiable. The word is shall. That means you will do it. And especially on some of my jobs, for my employees, I want it written in English and Spanish, because I have a lot of Spanish speaking and Spanish reading employees. So I want to make sure that everybody is as protected as I can be and that they understand the warning signs. 1926-502 Charlie covers safety net systems. We will not be covering nets in great detail, other than one specific section. And that is 1926-502 Charlie 5. Defective nets shall not be used. Safety nets shall be inspected at least once a week for wear, damage, and other deterioration. Defective components shall be removed from service. Safety nets shall also be inspected after any occurrence which could affect the integrity of the safety net system. The reason that we're covering this is so that way if you're on a job site and they're using the safety net system, you know somebody should be inspecting that net regularly, and especially if something significant hits the net. The next is 1926-502 Charlie 6, and that is materials, scrap pieces, equipment, and tools which have fallen into the safety net shall be removed as soon as possible from the net, and at least before the next work shift. So leaving a bunch of crap in that net is unacceptable. It's literally an OSHA violation. Section 1926-502 Delta covers fall protection equipment. Now we get into strength loads. 1926-502 Delta 3, D-rings and snap hooks shall have a minimum tensile strength of 5,000 pounds. And no, the little snap rings that you have that you get from the gas station or you get from usually a lot of tool vendors, most of them are not rated for fall protection. Do not just grab some random hook and think it's going to be fall protection. It is not. It must be rated at 5,000 pounds. Again, this time we're going to go in a slightly different direction. Snap hooks. They cannot be hooked up to webbing, rope, wire rope, each other. A D-ring to which another snap hook or other connector is already attached, like another person. A horizontal lifeline, or to something that it could unintentionally become disengaged, meaning a place where there's a possibility of both of the keepers being pushed and it popping off. Now, I already know we're going to have some arguments with this, but Shelby, I see horizontal lifelines all the time. Agreed, but you need to look back at the regulation that was just up there, and unless it's designed for it. The next one is But Shelby, I see lanyards all the time that are able to lock back onto the ring that's specifically designed that way. And again, it's because it's designed that way. These are normal snap hooks, cannot be used in this situation. Delta 9, lanyards and vertical lifelines shall have a minimum breaking strength of 5,000 pounds. Delta 13, self-retracting lifelines and lanyards which do not limit free fall distance to 2 feet or less. Rip-stitch lanyards and tearing and deforming lanyards shall be capable of sustaining a minimum tensile load of 5,000 pounds. Applied to the device with the lifeline or lanyard in a fully extended position. That's a lot of words. What it's saying is, at the worst case scenario, it needs to be able to withstand 5,000 pounds. A lot of these devices are intended to slow you down or even stop the fall before you even get to the full 6 foot, 5,000 pound capacity. 1926-502 Delta 15 anchorages. Anchorages used for attachment of personal fall arrest equipment shall be independent of any anchorage being used to support or suspend platforms and capable of supporting at least 5,000 pounds per employee attached. That's per employee attached. Or shall be designed and installed and used as follows, and then it gets into set of criteria where if you're not going to go for the 5,000 pounds, you can also go for this other set of rules and regulations, which are a little bit less stringent, but require a lot more knowledge of the actual item you're hooking up to. Before we go any further, we need to absolutely understand what 5,000 pounds looks like. This is one of the most important numbers in all of fall protection is 5,000 pounds. Do you know what 5,000 pounds looks like? Do you think this guy who's hooking up to a handrail rated at 200 pounds, do you think that he knows what 5,000 pounds looks like? What about this guy? Do you think that electrical wire is rated at 5,000 pounds? Is it even de-energized? And this guy, he's my favorite. Do you think that hook's rated at 5,000 pounds, that little piece of metal hook? Let's take a look at 5,000 pounds. This is a 2019 Ford F-150 XL 4-door Super Crew 4-wheel drive vehicle. Its approximate weight is 4,769 pounds. That's not even 5,000 pounds. So if you wouldn't hang this truck off on that tie-off point, why in the world would you hang yourself on it? It's not rated for your impact, so don't tie off to it. And no, I'm not a Ford man personally, but we take all kinds here at the Safety Tavern. 1926 Delta 16 Personal Fall Arrest Systems. When stopping a fall shall limit maximum arresting force on an employee to 900 pounds when used with a body belt. Limit maximum arresting force on an employee to 1,800 pounds when used with a body harness. Be rigged such that an employee can neither free fall more than 6 feet nor contact any lower level. Let's break this down just a little bit more. This is Bob, and Bob's going to hook off his lanyard right here. But the problem is if Bob has a fall and his lanyard extends out 6 feet, his legs are going to get broken as he lands right here, and this is exactly what this regulation is trying to prevent. Don't just look at the 6 foot fall, also look at what he could impact on the way down. Look at things that could be in the way. Look at objects, look at pipe valves sticking out, look at additional pieces of metal that Bob could fall down into. This is what this regulation is trying to prevent. It's trying to prevent you from hitting anything during that fall. If there's a possibility of you hitting something, you need different fall protection or fall prevention. Maybe get a lanyard out there that's shorter, or get you a self-retracting lifeline that will automatically catch you and prevent you from falling more than 2 feet or 1 foot or whatever its deceleration and stopping point is. 1926-502 Foxtrot warning line systems will not be covered today. This is a very large and sometimes complicated situation, and that definitely needs to be used only on a very specific basis for a specific area in a specific job site. There will be videos later that cover this very specific topic. 1926-502 Gulf controlled access zones is the exact same. 1926-502 Hotel safety monitoring systems is the exact same.
This is a body harness. This is designed to be put onto your body, thus it's called body harness. And this is the D-ring. The D-ring will go in the middle of your back. So take your back, your shoulder blades, smack dab in the middle, right there, is where this D-ring should be. It should not be down here. It should not be up here.
So I'll take this D-ring, and normally when you pull them out, they're going to be all mixed up and all kinds of tangled up. Grab it by the back D-ring, shake it out to where your leg straps are hanging loose down here. You may have to flip and pull and do some stuff to get it unraveled, and that's okay. Just make sure that you get it unraveled right and slip it on. Now this one is not going to fit me. I am a 300-pound man, and this is a small to large harness. This is not going to fit me. If I try to put my legs in through these loops down here, it is not going to fit. Because this is meant for a normal size human being, not a plus size human being like old Shelby here. So, make sure that you're checking the tags. And that is the first inspection point. That's the first thing that we look at on any fall protection are the tags. So I pull this old girl right back off, and where are my tags? And I start looking around. And normally you'll have some kind of a Velcro or some kind of a vinyl type connection in here. Here's the Velcro. Open her up, and I start looking at the tagging. And as I come right here, I'll see small to large. And as I keep flipping, you should find things like, what's the weight rated for? I'm a 300-pound man. If I'm wearing this, which is rated for 310 pounds, I'm okay. But now I got to start adding in all the other stuff. I'm wearing a pair of 2-pound boots. I'm wearing about 1.5 pounds worth of clothing. If I put on a tool belt, am I still good to go? No, I'm getting up into that 310, 320, 325 pounds worth of holding me up. So be real careful. Not all fall protection is made the same. It's not. The first thing that I check on fall protection, number one, is the tag. If the tag is good, if it's rated for me, if it's my size, good to go. If it's missing a tag, it goes in the trash. It goes in the trash. This is a $60 item. It goes in the trash. If the tag is good, the next thing I look at is I actually inspect it. And I'm looking at all this stitching. I'm looking at every single connection point, all the stitching. I'm looking at the metal. How rusty is this? Because if you've got a piece of equipment that is just rusted out, throw it in the trash. Again, it's $60 to save your life. So, assuming that this is good to go, I'll check all the rubber, I'll check all the plastic, make sure everything is in good working order. If you're not sure about a condition, talk to your safety competent person for your company. Or you can also get in touch with the manufacturer and ask them. Take a picture of this, send it to them and say, hey, is this acceptable? Because they have manufacturer recommendations, and they're the first ones that'll tell you, no, that needs to be thrown in the trash. Do not work on these. Do not repair these yourself. You are not this one's made by Guardian. You are not a Guardian repair technician. Do not do it. Not as a supervisor, not as an employee. Do not repair these. Next, I have a lanyard. Now, this is a rope lanyard. And without even going too deep into this video, do you see the problem there? Do you see that? Trash. Brand new. Never been used. This has never been on a job site. But the place that it was kept, it's starting to rip up. Are you going to trust your life on this rope now? It's got 8 fibers being ripped out of here. Are you going to trust this? Is this safety to you? This is a $15 item. Now, granted, you may be able to get them for cheaper or more expensive depending on where you're at, but this is a $15 item. Throw it in the trash. This is not the kind of thing that you want to play with. This is a lanyard to save your life. Now, this lanyard has 2 different hookup points. It's got a carabiner this size and a carabiner this size. This carabiner is called a rebar hook. It is designed to be able to hook up to your lifts or pieces of rebar, specifically if they'll hold that 5,000 pounds, good to go. This goes to your back. Under no circumstances do you do this. This is unacceptable. Do not hook your fall protection up like this. Do not ever do this. Don't take your lanyard and wrap it back around on itself. That is unacceptable. The first thing we're going to check is that tag. We're looking for that serial number. We're looking for that. What is the weight rating on this? Is this even designed for fall protection? I've gone on to many job sites and I've found they're using stuff that's not even rated for fall protection. So check your tags, number one. Number two, check the condition. This is unacceptable. This is an anchor strap. Now that term is used a lot in the industry in construction for a lot of different things. This is an anchor strap for fall protection. The way it gets installed is, notice the different sizes of the rings. Big ring, small ring. It goes just like that. And this wraps around whatever it is you're trying to wrap around. Whether it's a couple of struts that you're confident has said, yep, all those added together, those will reach that safety factor of 5,000 pounds or not. It wraps around the I-beam. That's going to hold that 5,000 pounds. This is meant for you to wrap around several things, cinch it up, do this. Do not install it like this. Do not wrap it around the product and hook your carabiner into there. This is not acceptable. This is against the manufacturer recommendations. Do not install it this way. So again, we look at the inspection criteria. First thing we check is always the tag. I look at the tag. What is it rated for? This one, as you can see very, very clearly, is rated at 310 pounds. Check the gear. Once we've inspected the tag, now we do an actual physical inspection. I'm looking at all of this stitching in here to make sure it's all good to go. It looks good. It should. It's brand new. I'm making sure that none of this is ripped. I'm looking at the metal. Is the metal good to go or is it rusting? I do a good inspection on this piece of equipment. This is good. So I got my harness on me. I got my lanyard also. And I've got my anchor strap. I'm ready to go to work.
In the name of
Construction safety. Kill yourself. Now, I don't have the singing chops that them ladies do, but I'll tell you this, we've got a few more regs to look at, just a few, so hang on. These are kind of the last scraps of fall protection. 1926-502 Delta 18 roughly says that fall protection should be used only for fall protection. If you take that lanyard and you throw it down to your buddy and he hooks a bucket up to it and you use your lanyard to pull a bucket up, that's no longer fall protection. That's a piece of lifting equipment, and it can never be used as fall protection again. Delta 19. If a piece of fall protection does get that impact load on it, does receive the impact of a person falling on it, it is to be immediately taken out of service. You've got to take it off the floor. You can't let people use it anymore. Check with your competent person for your company and see what they want done with it. Delta 20. The employer shall provide for prompt rescue of employees in the event of a fall. So before you start pulling out the fall protection equipment, as the supervisor on your job site, what needs to run through your mind is, what do I do when they fall? How am I going to get them out of the air? A lot of our jobs, we have boom lifts all over the place, so it's not too bad of a deal. But especially if you're doing night work, or especially if you're doing some pretty solo stuff, like it's a late weekend, holiday weekend, that's whenever you really need to pay attention to what you're doing, because if you fall or if one of your people falls, how are you going to get them out of the air? You better have that boom lift key in your pocket. Harness suspension trauma is a real injury. It is a recognized injury, and arguably it could actually start anywhere between 5 minutes to 15 minutes of that person just hanging there. So do not do the right thing by protecting your employees from a fall and then turn around and kill them because you can't get them out of the air. And last, and by far the most important, Delta 21, personal fall arrest systems shall be inspected prior to each use. Obviously for wear, damage, or deterioration, defective components, anything wrong, remove them from service. But you are responsible for inspecting your fall protection. You, the employee, you look at your fall protection, you look at the harness, you inspect it. You took it off, you went to the bathroom, you came back, guess what? Inspect it again. You came back from lunch, inspect it again, inspect it again, inspect it again. It's your life. Wait a minute, I've forgotten what to inspect. What do I inspect?
Inspect everything. Don't expose yourself to a fall. Ever. Can you fall? Remember, can you fall? And how far could you fall? If you're hitting that 6 foot, you need to start unpacking some gear like this. There will be more videos that will explain each and every individual item inspection criteria, so on and so forth. This is a generic fall protection class. There are too many different versions of fall protection for this video to cover every single one. Talk to the competent person for fall protection for your company for more specific information. That is their responsibility. Your responsibility, can I fall 6 feet and go tell my supervisor?
I have a friend of mine. We work the same shift at the plant. He had to do some repairs on silo number 1, about 20 feet up. I told him, "Hey, where's your fall protection, man?" He said, it's an easy job. It wouldn't take but 5 minutes.
It's only a 5-minute job. It's gonna take me 15 minutes putting the stuff on. I'll be all right.
Why should he go through all the extra effort and time it would take to get his harness and hookup? It just didn't seem worth the trouble.
Falls are the third highest cause of workplace fatalities, behind homicides and motor vehicle deaths. In a fall, 1 in 5 victims dies. Unfortunately, when this scaffold broke, the unprotected worker fell to his death. But this worker was eventually rescued because he hooked up. In fact, his fall was only 5 feet because he wore a shock-absorbing lanyard attached to a full-body harness. Hooking up to fall protection saves lives. In this program, you will learn about the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's Fall Protection Standard and good safety practices for general industry, including types of personal fall protection systems, which systems you should use, equipment anchorage, tie-off, and use, rescue of fallen workers, and equipment care and inspection. There are 2 kinds of personal fall protection systems: personal fall arrest systems and positioning devices. Personal fall arrest systems stop a fall once it has begun. The equipment used consists of full body harnesses, lanyards, lifelines, anchorage connectors, and descent control devices. Positioning device systems prevent falls by supporting you in a working position with equipment such as a body belt, harness, connectors, snap hooks, and proper anchorage. To understand how fall protection equipment works, let's look at what happens in a fall. The time before the device catches the falling worker is called free fall. During free fall, the body is accelerating, so the longer the fall, the faster the body is traveling. When the fall protection system takes over, the body decelerates smoothly. All of the energy built up in the fall is transmitted through the body and the fall protection system during deceleration. The distance that it takes to stop is called the deceleration distance. To prevent injuries, fall arrest equipment often has a deceleration device to absorb some or most of the shock on the body by slowing the fall smoothly. A deceleration device should limit your deceleration to no more than 3.5 feet. Fall protection equipment must be strong enough to absorb shock and stop falls quickly without putting excess force on your body. Your employer will perform a hazard assessment and determine the best type of fall protection for you to use on the job. Be sure to wear the equipment you were provided and do not substitute other fall protection. You will also be trained in the proper use of the fall protection equipment. In your training, you will learn how the equipment is worn and maintained and what job
That D-ring looks a little low, boss.
it is intended to perform. You will also learn when shock-absorbing lanyards are used and how to hook up to a lifeline. Only use equipment for the job it was designed to do. Do not use fall arrest systems as positioning devices. Likewise, don't use window anchors for anything except window cleaners' belts. A strong military is vital when the need arises to defend your country. In the war against fall fatalities, anchorage is the first line of defense. It must be strong enough to take several times the force of the falling worker, complete with a tool belt. The best anchorages are I-beams, specially rigged lifelines, and other solid fixtures. Don't trust your life to conduit, cable hangers, light fixtures, or anything else that was not designed to take a sudden heavy load. Don't use bolts, studs, or other projections that allow the hook to slip off. The location of your anchorage is as important as its strength. Select an anchorage that lets you move freely but doesn't increase your free fall distance. The best location for an anchorage is above where you are working to reduce your free fall distance. Any anchorage points below the D-ring on your harness will add that distance to your fall, while points above will subtract distance. To find a safe anchorage height, add the length of the lanyard when it is fully extended and the distance from the D-ring to your feet. Make sure the anchorage is more than that distance from any point below it. Otherwise, you could hit the ground or other objects below you before your fall protection system stops you. Next, make sure the anchorage is located as close to directly above you as possible, so you will not swing if you fall. Any side-to-side movement in a fall can swing you into other structures and cause severe injury. Change your anchorage point when you move to keep it above you. It's an obvious fact. The farther one falls, the faster that body goes, and the more shock there is when that body stops. Even when wearing a harness, this holds true. So it's important to limit free fall distance in order to reduce the chance of being injured by the fall arrest force. Never rig a system that would allow you to free fall more than 6 feet. Lifelines can be horizontal or vertical. Horizontal lifelines must be designed, installed, and used under the supervision of a qualified person. The more workers tied off to a single line, the stronger the line and its anchors must be. Vertical lifelines should never have more than one person per line. Make sure your line reaches to the ground or the next working level below, or terminate it in a way that will keep your lanyard from moving past its end. Tying off or securing yourself to the anchorage requires a firm connection that will not weaken the anchorage, the lanyard, or the connector. In a 100% fall protection system, you are continuously tied off. That means you tie off before you get into a position where you are likely to fall, and don't release the connection until you are safe from a fall. Don't tie a knot in your lanyard, since a knot weakens your lanyard. Instead of a knot, either get a shorter lanyard or reduce your free fall distance to minimize the impact on the system. Tying off around rough or sharp surfaces such as I or H beams also threatens lanyard security. Any sharp surfaces can weaken or cut the lanyard under the impact of a fall arrest, possibly causing it to fail when it is needed. Tie-off devices are also available for beams, rails, and other potential anchorages. To protect the lanyard, use padding on sharp or rough surfaces, or use an abrasion-resistant strap. Locking snap hooks are required on all personal fall protection to prevent opening from accidental causes such as rollout. Rollout takes place when a lanyard or any object presses against the keeper during a fall, allowing the lanyard to slip out of the hook. Locking prevents rollout by requiring intentional release before the hook will open. D-rings should be large compared to hooks, so the ring will reach beyond the hook's keeper rather than pressing against it. After attaching the snap hook, make sure it is secure and locked, and that accidental rollout is impossible. Harnesses must fit snugly. If your harness is too loose, it could slip from you in a fall. Before you put on your harness, inspect it for frayed webbing, broken fibers or cuts, distorted D-rings, cracks, rough or sharp edges on metal parts, unusual wear where the buckle attaches, tongue or grommet condition, and a safely working buckle. Next, hold the harness by the back D-ring and shake the straps into place. Release straps and slip them over your shoulders so the D-ring is located in the middle of the back between your shoulder blades. Pull the leg strap between your legs and connect it to the opposite end. The waist strap should be tight but not binding. Connect the chest strap and position it in the middle of your chest. Check for snug fit that allows full movement. To keep from doubling over sideways or backwards in a fall, connect your harness either in the center of the back at the shoulder level or above your head. Ladder safety devices are designed so you can have both hands free for climbing. The connection between the device carrier's lifeline and your belt cannot be more than 9 inches long. This limits free fall, but it's enough to let you climb in a normal position. Do not climb while holding objects. Use either belt hooks or a rope hoist to pull up tools and materials. Once you have fallen and your fall protection system has saved you, you must be rescued safely and quickly. Your employer should have a rescue plan in place which includes rescue by coworkers, a way of summoning a rescue squad, or some combination of these methods. All effective rescue systems involve advanced planning. Make sure you know what your company's rescue plan calls for. You should be familiar with rescue equipment at your facility such as ladders, hoists, man lifts, or ropes, and have some practice using it. You should also know how to contact outside help quickly in an emergency. Rescue personnel should know what steps to take depending on the circumstances and the rescue plan. Prepare any medical equipment that will be needed to transport the victim. Once you reach the victim, try to lower him as safely as possible. Remain calm. This helps you think clearly, and it helps keep the victim calm as well. Move the victim carefully to avoid making head, neck, or back injuries worse. Defective equipment can kill you. The few minutes it takes to inspect your equipment before each shift can save your life. Worn, defective equipment should be taken out of service and handled according to facility policy to prevent future use. Equipment used in a fall or that has otherwise suffered shock must be inspected by a competent person before it can be used again. Follow your facility procedures for safely maintaining and storing your personal fall protection equipment. In general, equipment should be stored away from excessive heat, sunlight, chemical reaction, and welding splatter. Don't leave your equipment where people or vehicles can run over it. Metal elements need protection from corrosion and crushing. Never allow your personal fall protection equipment to be used for hoisting materials or tools. Personal fall protection systems can save your life. From lifeline to lanyard to harness, your employer will provide the equipment and instruct you in its use and care. Do your part by using and maintaining it properly. You have a choice. You can stop your fall at the end of a lanyard or on the ground. Be smart. Stay on top.
Today we'll be talking about how to properly put on, or more precisely, don a full body harness. Guardian offers a wide variety of fall protection harnesses with different webbing and buckle options. The worker featured in today's video will be donning our Velocity harness. To get things started, the first and most important step of using any piece of fall protection equipment is to inspect it. Hold the harness at the dorsal D-ring and make sure all buckles are disconnected and all webbing straps are not twisted or tangled. Should you notice any sort of damage, take the harness out of service immediately and report it to your job site's competent person. After inspection is complete, place the harness shoulder straps over your shoulders, making sure the dorsal D-ring faces out. If the dorsal D-ring is too high or too low, remove the harness and adjust the D-ring so it is positioned correctly. The dorsal D-ring should be adjusted so it is positioned at the upper middle part of the shoulders. Next, you'll connect your leg straps. If the harness has a tongue buckle connection, adjust by pulling a strap through the buckle and locking it in place by connecting the tongue through a grommet on the strap. If the harness has a pass-through connection, connect by passing the male plate through the female plate to create a secure connection. If the harness has a quick connect connection, connect by clicking the male end into the female end, and disconnect by pushing the release buttons on each side of the buckle. Now we'll adjust and connect the chest strap. First, connect the chest strap buckle and ensure that the chest strap itself is positioned at the lower chest level, as shown. And the last step of the donning process is to make all your final adjustments. The shoulder, chest, and leg straps should be fitted snugly, but still allow for a full range of movement. Tighten or loosen all straps as needed. Ensure the straps are not twisted, and secure as much excess webbing as possible with web clips or elastic keepers. To check if your leg straps are properly adjusted, use the hand test. An open hand should fit between your strap and your leg, but a closed fist should not. Proper adjustment is very important here, since straps that are fitted too loose or too tight can increase the risk of injury in the event of a fall. If you followed all these steps, congratulations. You've successfully donned your harness. And now that you're done, it's always best practice to have someone with the knowledge of the safe and correct use of harnesses to ensure that your harness is donned correctly. Use the buddy system to double check your work here, as a properly fitted harness is the key to ensuring your safety in the event of a fall. Until next time, be safe up there.
for insulating the roof and applying the top layer of sheet metal roof decking on a tall, pre-engineered building. The roof was fairly flat. There was no controlled decking zone, and the workers were not wearing any personal fall protection. The workers were using drills to screw the metal sheets into the purlins. As one of the workers walked down the roof, he lost his footing. He fell through the space between the purlins and landed on the floor below. He died the next day from his injuries.
I woke up that morning, said goodbye to Laurel, opened up our son's room and checked in on our 2-year-old. He was sound asleep, and had a cup of coffee. So I jumped in the truck and drove to Everett, Washington. Weather was bad, and I was the first one there. We got our rigging all set up and went to the supervisors, and they went up and checked all our safety lines and gave us the okay to start power washing. Towards the end of the day, we got to a location of 30 feet. So it was my idea to say, hey, let's pick it up and set it on the inside of the handrail. I was tied off at the time. I unhooked my lanyard, hooked it back to myself, and my coworker put his hands up and said no. So I climbed up on the handrail, and then something odd happened. Something's not right. I was thrown back about 10 feet and down 30 feet. The hard hat came off, safety glasses came off, and I'm still almost in a panic. And at that point, I was completely lost. I didn't know which way was up. And I landed on the back of my head first. So I tried to take a little breath, and I couldn't breathe. And then the pain went away. It got warm. It was peaceful. I don't know what you call that transition, but I was okay with it. I was okay. And then while I was in that transition, I felt somebody touch me, and a tiny, tiny breath finally came. And it was my coworker who had run down the 3 flights of stairs. And then he went down and got help.
It was Friday night, and it was about 5 o'clock, about time to go home. And my supervisor came to me, and she said, "You have a phone call." Nobody wants to get that phone call. And nobody wants to make that phone call. All they could tell me was that my husband had been in a serious accident and that I had to get to the hospital right away. So, between my tears and the rain on the windshield, I don't know really how I made it. I don't know how long it took. I just kept thinking, how would I tell our son? His daddy's not coming home. It's not worth it. You don't understand how many people are affected and how deeply they're affected when you have an accident. being unsafe is just selfish. And, just, it's not worth it.
What is the approximate distance from the ground?
Well, the first, second, third floor is 16 stories, 48, 58, 68, 78, about 80 foot.
How many people are hurt?
I have no idea. We're all trying to get off the deck right now.
A construction worker is dead after falling off of a ladder while building a home.
Some people get lucky, land on their feet, or they bounce because it's a short fall. But then there's other longer falls where you go and you fall and you stick your arms out, you tear your rotator cuffs, you break your pelvises, other thing like that.
This is the second death in 5 days here in Canton. Last Wednesday, a worker died after falling off a roof on a building on Draper Lane.
Everybody makes mistakes sooner or later. These guys work over 2,000 hours a year. If you do that for 20 years, at some point you are going to make a mistake. I've seen plenty of people make those mistakes, fall under their harnesses or just plain fall.
He's inside the building. He fell through the roof.
He fell through the roof?
Okay. Yes, correct, onto the concrete.
I would say at 20 feet, going that fast, you land on the concrete and you walk away from it, you're a very lucky individual. You're probably going to be crippled for the rest of your life or you're going to be dead, especially if you take a head impact.
There's blood all over the place. Is he breathing?
Where's the blood coming from?
Yes, he's breathing.
Okay.
It looks like blood's coming from his head. He's barely breathing.
Have you ever heard the old cliche, it's not the fall that kills you? What is it? The sudden stop at the end. Do you think they're lying? They're not lying. Because I tell you what, you're falling, bam, you hit. What stops? Your body. What doesn't stop? Your organs. So they crash into the back of your rib cage and they blow up. You can't take the force. Do you know what it takes to break a man's collarbone? 8 pounds.
A roofer fell off this 3-story roof to the pavement below where he was pronounced dead.
We oftentimes fail to recognize the harm done to a family, a surviving spouse, children, moms and dads, grandparents, and the futures that those individuals held.
The victim's colleagues and family are devastated by this workplace accident.
He was only 24?
25. If they allow somebody to get up there and work without fall protection and they fall, that's one of your family members that just got hurt. And I don't think they think about it in that fashion until afterwards when it's too late.
Moving on to other news now, a construction worker slipped and fell 30 feet into a water tank.
Anybody that works at Heights, whether they're a first day on the job or they're the president of the company, the rules apply, period, because gravity does not discriminate.